Hello, good morning, everyone. I am Chaitra Vedalapalli, and it's afternoon for some of you. First is thank you for joining the Cloud Exec Connect. This is one of the most amazing experience where the entrepreneurs get to meet with investors, strategic buyers, and also strategic partners. So this session is sponsored by Camilo, and Camilo is a breakthrough leader in simplifying data management in its native file form at the massive scale across the hybrid cloud environments. So this particular session is really designed for us to really understand the state of enterprise procurement. So according to the IDG's most recent survey of all the IT decision makers, 93% of the organizations have plans to pursue digital transformation, and 48% of them have a digital first approach. So how are they working the transformation into their budget? The current landscape shows less than 1% of the digital transformation project spends happen with female tech founders. So we have an opportunity to reallocate dollars, not only from a non-strategic IT or a day-to-day IT, but also not business specific, but to strategic IT that drives the business forward along with making the spend more inclusive. So today we are going to explore a few things because you're coming into a new environment. So you have to really figure out how to do. First is you can engage. You can ask a lot of questions in the chat. You can also do is cheer people as they're on the stage. Third is connect. Take time to connect. This time is all about networking. So this particular presentation gives you a context. Then you go back into the lounge network, and then you get to share your experiences and insight. So as part of this session, today we will be exploring a few things. One is the state of enterprise procurement. Second is creating corporate culture for economic inclusion. Power panel really exploring why is it a necessity to make our supplier channels inclusive in the Fortune 1000 companies. And after that, we will go into the business development networking, and I'll give you the instruction. But to so first is, before we get started, I want to know where are you all joining us from? Go ahead and put it in the chat box so we know that it's working. Fantastic. So we have Dallas, California. We have, oh boy, it's cool. So this is unbelievable that we do have is a international audience joining in here. So what we want to do today is really invite Colleen O'Brien. She's one of our board of advisors and also CMO at M12. She is a marketing executive with a decade of experience leading strategic, internal, and external communications for Microsoft. So before her tenure, she has modernized the company's product marketing efforts through iterative, data-driven strategy. In 2017, she transitioned into executive communication, helping her enhance the perception of Microsoft's $11.9 billion cloud computing platform and its leadership. Now, she serves as the chief marketing officer for the company's venture fund, where she manages brand storytelling and advises the fund early stage startups on foundational communication. Anyone who wants to learn more about M12, how it works for female founders, I would recommend you connect with her during the networking session. So with that, Colleen, I would love to welcome you to the stage.
Chaitra, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colleen O'Brien, and as Chaitra mentioned, I lead marketing for M12, Microsoft's venture fund. We invest in the best enterprise startups globally. I am also a proud member of Women in Cloud's board of advisors, and I'm thrilled to address all of you today. My hope for the session is that after Cloud Exec Connect, you feel activated. You understand the next steps to take to ensure greater economic access for women. You understand your sphere of influence and you're ready to demonstrate your power. Because we are in crisis mode. Over 2 million women have left the labor force since the onset of COVID-19, largely due to family care responsibilities. And unfortunately, unemployment rates are disproportionately higher amongst Latinas, Black women, and people with disabilities. In September, when the new school year kicked off, women dropped out of the workforce at 4 times the rate of men. So many people have reached their tipping point, perhaps being called upon to be a caregiver, a teacher, and a worker. I'm ringing the alarm on these numbers because there is so much at stake with so many women leaving the labor force. The Association of Executive Search and Leadership Consultants suggests that the top way to drive more innovation at a company is to hire more women leaders. McKinsey & Company's Women in the Workplace studies suggests incredible benefits of having more women leaders, from increasing productivity and enhancing collaboration to inspiring organizational dedication and decreasing employee burnout. I could use a little bit of that right now. A study by Hay Group found that women outperform men in 11 of 12 key emotional intelligence competencies. Oftentimes you'll hear this interpreted as women's advantage in soft skills. But these soft skills are actually really essential leadership capabilities. Self-motivation, work ethic, resilience, the ability to network, as many of you are doing here today, oral and written communication, and critical thinking among them. Even when we pivot from soft skills to cold, hard cash, women are outperforming. Businesses founded by women ultimately deliver higher revenue, more than twice as much per dollar invested than those founded by men, which has led Boston Consulting Group to declare that women-owned businesses are a better bet. By not investing in women, we are leaving money on the table. And maybe you're wondering, how much exactly? Boston Consulting Group shows that if women and men participated equally as entrepreneurs, global GDP could rise by as much as $5 trillion. These stats have been a major topic of conversation in the venture capital world, because if women-founded startups are a better bet, why aren't we investing in them? In 2019, we did hit an all-time high. Venture capital investment in all female founding teams hit $3.3 billion, which represented just 2.8% of capital invested across the entire US startup ecosystem. 2.8%, 2.8%, an all-time high. And based on some mid-December analysis, the number dipped by over 25% in 2020. These numbers are trending in the wrong direction. They're going in the wrong direction specifically for many of the founders at the Women in Cloud Summit today. Crunchbase found that women building companies that offer gender-neutral products and services, like enterprise SaaS solutions, have an even more difficult time raising venture capital than their female-focused counterparts, ultimately amassing only 54% of the funding that women-founded, women-centric companies received. I'm going to break this down a little bit more. If you are selling cosmetics to women, you are likely to receive more VC funding than a woman building an enterprise SaaS company. Some of you may have read the recent Business Insider coverage on the hundreds of startups that go public every single year. Unfortunately, only 20 have been founded and led by women. No, not 20 last year, 20 since the founding of the New York Stock Exchange in 1817. There are many issues at play here, among them that only 13% of all VC decision makers are women. But whether you're supporting women entrepreneurs by sharing their social posts or through your own angel investing, the time to step up is now. I wish that I could tell you that venture capital is the only hurdle for women founders, that after funding, it is a breeze to grow a company. But particularly for startups founded and led by underrepresented founders, breaking into corporate supplier systems, landing enterprise customers is the next big challenge. I'll break this down a little bit as well. As some of you probably know, corporations contract with external companies to procure goods and services. For example, as a marketer, I contract with creative agencies, PR firms, media analytics companies, all to move my business forward. Especially for large enterprises, there are requirements of the external suppliers that you might work with. Perhaps they need to go through legal vetting. Maybe they'll handle customer data and need to achieve security compliance. Or perhaps their software is going to be used by a lot of employees and it needs to be accessible. Due to these checkpoints, it can sometimes take over a month, let's be real, sometimes many months, to get a new supplier into the corporate procurement system and be cleared for setting up those contracts. And because business is moving so quickly, many executives are not incentivized or motivated to handhold new suppliers through that process or to conduct a truly inclusive request for proposals. Expedience bias leads so many of us to opt for what's easiest and what can be done most quickly. We decide to work with those incumbent suppliers, the ones who have served this business all along. They're already in the system, they know our business, they've cleared all the privacy requirements. Let's get them on board. More often than not, those businesses are founded and led by white men. They entered into the supplier system years ago, and they've been riding that expedience bias for years into multiple corporate contracts just because they were the path of least resistance. They secured an advantage by getting there early. I hope that the wheels have started turning here for you. Maybe you manage a corporate budget. Maybe you know someone who works in procurement. Maybe a close friend is an enterprise executive who should be connected with the founder sitting next to you right now. I know for me personally, it took several Women in Cloud events and personal conversations with one of the organization's founders, Chaitra, who introduced me today, before I more meaningfully understood the extent of this problem of economic access. And even then, it took me a little while to understand that I too was in charge of some corporate operating spend and that I could redirect dollars. That was in my sphere of influence. Today, I hope to jumpstart that process for you. Please take stock of your own sphere of influence, the ways that you can change some of these trends directly or indirectly. The next couple of talks and panels will explore this opportunity in greater detail. And as you hear more, consider how you might take action with this knowledge. We have so much to gain by creating economic opportunity for women. More collaborative work environments, a faster pace of innovation, better performing financials, and $5 trillion boost to the GDP. I'm excited to do my part in collaboration with all of you here today to help us realize a more equitable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colleen. That was fantastic. You are so correct that we do need to take a stock at our sphere of influence and make an impact. So now going to the next one, we'll talk about the corporate culture for economic inclusion. But before we get started, I want to know how many of you are here who are entrepreneurs in the room today. If you are there, say yes and tell us about your company. So take a moment. And I would like to introduce Gina Fraterkanjali. She is the Managing Director and Market Unit Sales Leader at Accenture. And we are so proud that Accenture is a Women in Cloud sponsor And here's to Gina, who made that happen. Gina was also named a top 10 women in cloud this fall, and she and I personally go back years ago to the Cherry Creek, where Gina gave the TED Talk on Stop Climbing and Start Lifting, which has already reached over 32,000 views at last count. Gina was also featured last year and also last night on this stage. So now, Gina, I would love you to share thoughts on how the cloud will impact us today, tomorrow, and beyond. Take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Chaitra. And thank you. It's just a real honor and pleasure for me to be here today and share some thoughts and ideas that have been on my mind lately about cloud and the impact that cloud is having on all of us. I think Colleen made some great points about what's happening in the market, and we're all very aware of that. And I've had a lot of time, it turns out to be a lot of time on my hands to be thinking about things. To share a quick story with you, back in November, my family and I decided to come down to Costa Rica and get a little quick escape. We thought of it as turning lemons into lemonade, and COVID was rough on the family and no school, and Costa Rica's paradise. So everything started out great. The kids were learning some valuable life lessons and learning to speak Spanish. I had this plan to get up every morning at 6 a.m. and go out and surf before work. Plan started out great. And then one day I fell and broke my foot. Emergency surgery, 6 screws and a plate later, and there goes my professional surfing career. But in the spirit of turning more lemons into more lemonade, I was determined to find something positive from the event. And here it is. It gave me time to slow down and reflect. Time to think about what's going on in the world around us and how I can be a better influence to that. So stop all the crazy running around for a little bit. And such a gift to have that chance to just sit and think about things. So very excited about how that happened. So a lemon to lemonade story for sure, and gave me some time to really think about women in cloud and why I'm so supportive of this organization and what this organization means to me. And it made me excited about trying to get Accenture more involved in the organization. So I worked hard to share the mission and the value proposition of women in cloud to our leadership to inspire their support. I pointed out how Women in Cloud works globally to lift up and support women in the cloud space. I emphasized how their mission to advocate for gender equality in tech aligns with Accenture's own corporate goals. And I made a personal pitch that recruiting, educating, and advancing more women in tech are top priorities for me personally, and that I had recently been named one of the top 10 most influential women in cloud, and wanted to use that platform to further elevate Accenture's brand as a place for women in cloud to work. As our CMO said when I pitched the idea to her, she said, "It's a no-brainer, let's do this." Thus, Accenture became a corporate sponsor for Women in Cloud to help support Women in Cloud's vision and to bring more women into the industry with the infrastructure, connections, and support they need to be successful here. I've always thought a lot about cloud and how more women could participate to grow and learn in the cloud space. And today I want to share with you a few of my learnings, experiences, and ideas to hopefully inspire you in this industry, and how I'm thinking about cloud's impact on us today, tomorrow, and beyond. As many of you know, cloud has taken on a new urgency since COVID hit. As Colleen said, practically overnight, right? Companies had to pivot and move to the cloud faster than they ever thought. Their long-term strategy for this transformation was dramatically impacted. Companies saw firsthand that cloud-first businesses like Accenture were able to quickly adapt to things like 100% remote workforce on a dime, using cloud tools and assets to continue our business and keep our employees safe with next to no disruption to our client services. It was truly awesome to watch happen. And conversely, some companies without a clear vision for cloud have struggled and tend to lag behind their respective industries. So when I think about cloud and how we're thinking about cloud, we see it as kind of three distinct phases. Phase one is you move all your old systems and data out of the local data center, put it in the cloud, save a bunch of money. This is a purely reactive, defensive strategy almost, but necessary for today's corporate survival. This urgency to get into cloud, spawned by COVID, has greatly accelerated the overall cloud transformation we're seeing in the marketplace. Pre-COVID, most companies had only about 20% of their workloads in the cloud. The expectation was that they'd eventually get 80% there, and we thought probably over 10 years. As you may have heard, our CEO, Julie Sweet, has made the point that now, since COVID, we're expecting companies to have 80% of their workloads in the cloud within the next 3 to 5 years. This level of acceleration is exceptional, and it's requiring leaders to think differently, to act with urgency, and to lead from the top. No longer is it the situation where the CIO and tech people will take care of it. It's a CEO issue now, a corporate imperative issue, and we get to be right there with the CEOs helping them figure it out. This leads to phase two, the tomorrow, when companies look at operationalizing their development work in the cloud to get better and faster output. So here's where companies start to look for what they think they can do now that they're in the cloud, and how they can create more value within their business. Our research is showing, however, that many companies aren't seeing the full value they expected from the cloud. They face unforeseen obstacles like a lack of cloud skills, business complexity, and misalignment between IT and business. These challenges are slowing down the cloud journey. Accenture is helping them overcome those obstacles, by the way. This is where having a partner and being the partner who can help companies understand the integration of tech and business and the impact of tech on business is so important. And then phase three, the beyond. This is when you start thinking about reinventing your business, because everything is in the cloud and everything is now integrated and data is so much more accessible. You have totally new ways of accessing data, thinking about the potential of your organization, and what new products and services may now be able to be created because of this new operating model. This is the phase that requires vision, creativity, and a willingness to let go of old ideas. It's a journey from what we need to do today to what we can do tomorrow, and then what we envision in the future, those totally new possibilities. It's an exciting journey for companies to be on if they have the right mindset. So now let's think about translating the same phases of the cloud journey into strategies for us as individuals. As you think about what you can do as a leader, ways you can be most impactful, I encourage you to think in the following terms. Think about what you need to accomplish today, where you can be tomorrow, and what impact and envision you inspire to have out in the future. So let me repeat that. Think about what you need to accomplish today, where you can be tomorrow, and what impact you envision and aspire to have out in the future. So here's what I've learned along my journey. I want to share 3 key learnings and suggestions that seem most fitting for the Women in Cloud event, and as we think about our impact today, tomorrow, and beyond. Number 1, turn the idea of the mentor and mentee concept on its head. We all hear about it when we start our careers. Get out there, find mentors, build a social network of support. Traditionally, this means finding a network of more senior folks. However, what I've learned in this constantly changing world is that it's equally important to build a network of junior folks who will help you recognize what's coming down the pipe before you could ever see it. So what would this look like in practice? Those of you who are listening, 30-year-old and under, reach out and be a mentor to more senior leaders. And senior leaders, do the inverse. Open yourself up to being a mentee of someone younger. I know it may be uncomfortable, but it's super important to building your success today and creating new synergies for tomorrow. Older leaders need younger people to mentor them on what's new. I'll give you an example. Early in my career, this thing called the internet was just heating up, and I had a job selling advertising for an internet startup. And one day I was presenting to the board of a very large bank, very successful, very smart, older people. And before I got far into the presentation, one of the gentlemen raised his hand and said, the internet, can you please explain exactly what that is? And I took a deep breath and paused and thought, wow, these guys are old. How can they not know what the internet is? But this is going to keep reoccurring throughout our lives as things happen. And I didn't realize at the time, but there was an opportunity for me to mentor that man and help him learn about exciting new technologies that would help his bank be more successful. I missed the opportunity to help him become a leader in the space rather than a follower. I had the opportunity to share with him what I saw as the powerful future of the internet. I was young and missed this chance for what could have been a really mutual beneficial relationship. I encourage you to look for those opportunities and don't let them pass you by. Feel empowered to have a seat at the table with more senior leaders. Expertise comes in many different forms. Be confident that you have something to contribute at every point in your life and your career and conversation. Number 2, if you're looking toward where you can be tomorrow, then always be looking for what's emerging. I literally have a sticky note on my desk that says, always be looking for what's emerging, to keep it fresh and on my mind. And when I see something that is complex, transformative, and it takes me reading multiple articles to truly understand the impact it can have, like AI or blockchain, I know I'm on the right track and it's something I should be paying attention to. 1 out of every 100 technologies I hear of and think about gets me excited and makes me think differently about my plans and where my career may take me. This all started when I first got out of college. I had a job with a big advertising agency with a great training program as a media buyer in a fantastic city. It had lots of career potential, and I was super excited to get up being a grown-up. Then one day, an internet startup came in and presented at the agency. And I realized at that moment that this is what was emerging, and then that was where the market was going, and I wanted to be part of this new technology. I quit my safe job and went to work for this startup. By the age of 25, I was a VP of sales and evangelizing the internet to old guys around the world. It was fun and exciting. My point is this: seek what's emerging, decide what you're passionate about, and be willing to take a leap to pursue it. My advice is begin to recognize the trends and ask yourself probing questions when you see new technologies. Like, what's the impact of this technology? How will it help people or companies today? How will it impact the way we work tomorrow? And how could it help them totally transform their businesses for the future? So what do I do to make this all a reality in my life? I read a lot. I read tech-oriented articles, but equally as important, I read business articles. I see which technologies the Wall Street Journal and Forbes are getting excited about. Because if they're getting excited, that means most executives who view them as a trusted source will probably start digging into the details to learn more, or probably have their people do that, but you get what I mean. Next, I talk a lot. I have trusted groups of advisors, subject matter experts from many different fields and industries who I respect and who are always looking for what's next. In my network, we discuss new technologies and the impacts my advisors think those technologies are going to have on their businesses. I encourage you to build a large, highly diverse network to get the broadest range of ideas and perspectives. Number 3, another important thing I've learned is to envision further out into the future. To do that, you have to be willing to let go of old beliefs. Let me tell you a quick story about that. One of our friends runs a real estate company in Michigan, multi-generational brand mega deal real estate company. When the internet first came around, we said, wow, this looks amazing. You could do so much with it and get online and do so many different things from a real estate perspective. His response was, no, the internet's just a fad. It's not going to change my business model. Real estate is a people business. And can you imagine if at that point he was able to shift his paradigm and think about, creating the realtor.com of what we know today? It would have been life-changing. So if he had the business vision to think differently, it could have been a huge impact. So this is why it's important to let go of the old belief system. They hold you back. They keep you in the today when you want to be gearing up for the tomorrow and beyond. So if you're going to be successful, not just today and tomorrow, but out into the future, if you're going to be open and receptive to what's emerging, you have to be willing to let go of what's now. Accept that nothing is permanent, change is constant, and that what you think is the best is always changing for each person, and you have to be constantly assessing that. You need to be willing to challenge your own thoughts and not be married to your ideas, and to share ideas with other people, to get them to react so you can constantly improve them. I think of it as the blockchain of life. By the way, blockchain is another passion of mine. How blockchain works is that it gets better because new data is constantly coming in from many different data sources to create this impenetrable, unrepeatable data chain. It's the same idea with the blockchain of life. On a human level, it's the idea that allowing more ideas and information sources to flow into your thinking. That's how we keep all getting smarter, how the universe keeps getting better as each person learns from others and constantly grows and changes. And this is where the diversity of ideas becomes extremely valuable. That means opening up to take new sources of data and thinking critically all the time. One thing I do is follow people who don't necessarily think like I do to get varied perspectives, to feed into that human blockchain I was describing. That's how you visualize what the future can look like. So this is what I've been thinking about, sitting in paradise with my foot in a big boot, unable to surf. I'll leave you with these closing thoughts. With everything you do today, in the same way we should be thinking about cloud's impact today, tomorrow, and the future, be thinking about how your actions and decisions contribute to what you need today, where you can be tomorrow, and what you envision for the longer journey into the future. And recognize your role in the bigger ecosystem, whether that's mentoring more senior sales leader, the older mentee, or the senior expert mentoring a young professional. We all have a role to play helping each other advance and grow. And watch constantly for what's emerging. Be conscious, be alert, be a critical thinker, ask the tough questions. Be humble and open to new ideas and new. The answer yesterday is definitely not the solution for the tomorrow. And the world is moving fast. These are 3 strategies that I believe will help you successfully shape your journey wherever you see that journey heading, and enable you and others to help you along that journey. So we all have a role to play to be personally growing, but also supporting our community into their quest. So my challenge to you is this: go be this change. Get out there after these sessions, join the breakout groups, and ask the different participants in the breakouts, how can I help you along this journey? Can you do it? Can you put yourself out there? I know you can. And I hope you will all be delighted with the outcome. So enjoy your time at the event, and please make the most of it for yourself and the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you so much for inspiring us. And we are really excited for the partnership with Accenture because you have access to all the Fortune 1000 companies. And as we have to go into breaking all the old barriers and old mindset, it really will help us to kind of get to the next level. The next one is, before I get you into the breakout rooms to have those conversations and networking, this is the last panel. I promise this is going to be short, quick, and easy for you to really understand. There's a sense of urgency for making our enterprise supplier channels more inclusive. It's a necessity right now. So with us, we have Kristen Miller, who's going to moderate a panel just to kind of have you expand your mind as an entrepreneur, as well as leaders, how to think about unlocking that procurement engines. So with that, I want to invite Kristen, welcome, and moderate a panel. I will have a timer on the top because these conversations are so inspiring, but everybody wants to network. So if you can do a pretty interesting one, that would be great.
Thank you, Chaitra, and sorry I beat you to the punch on hopping on stage. I was just so excited. This is such a wonderful topic, and I absolutely love the Women in Cloud tagline, "She soars," because that's what we all aspire to do. But unfortunately for so many of us female tech entrepreneurs, our 2 Achilles heels and what keeps us rooted firmly on the ground are raising capital and closing enterprise contracts. So I'm really excited to introduce all of you today to three incredible women who are going to join me in this conversation. We have the perspective from an entrepreneur, as well as the perspective from the corporate executive, as well as the public sector perspective. So with that, I would love to bring Katina, Wendy, and Amy up to the stage and give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to you. And actually, we'll start with Wendy today. So Wendy, it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about what economic access means to you, and just kind of for fun at the end of all of that, if you can share your 2020 word with us, that would be wonderful.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, Kristen. Even if it is virtual, we can't feel each other, but we can see each other. Like I said, I think we spoke about this before, but I'm the Chief Diversity Officer for the City of New York. My role is to do everything from investments to contracts to regulations and policy. A lot of the work that I do is really looking at women and minority-owned enterprises, and specifically women and people of color, and come up with solutions on how to address systemic racism. My word for 2020, is it 2021 or 2020?
2020, let's start with 2020.
2020, my 2020 word was going back to basics. So I don't know if that is.
Love it. I love it. Thank you, Wendy. And we'll hear more from all of our panelists as we continue the conversation. Katina, let's go to you next. What does economic access mean to you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and also your 2020 word.
Absolutely. I'm Katina Kenyon. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm the co-founder of Applaudo Studios. We are a tech company that helps large enterprises reimagine their digital transformation. We help them modernize their apps. We help them on their cloud journeys. And I am also a member of the Women in Cloud cohort number 4. So I am a recent graduate and thrilled to have attended the accelerator, and would love to speak to anyone in the breakout sessions later if you have questions about applying for the accelerator. I'm definitely a big fan of the Women in Cloud organization. So, economic access, to me, it really starts at the human side. So the human connections are so critical for us as female founders and as entrepreneurs. We don't run in the same circles as a lot of the investors do. And so that human connection may not come naturally to some of us. And not only do we not run in the same circles, we may not have the same education background as some of the tech investors do. And so I think it's really important that we are aware that this access is not just what are the dollar signs or the capital that these groups can flow into our businesses, but can they help us make really meaningful human connections. And then, I mentioned education. There's not only just kind of our formal educations. For me, it's been 20 plus years since I've had any formal education. And so we're not calling on our alumni systems, in the same ways. And so I encourage us to point founders and entrepreneurs to accelerators like the Women in Cloud Accelerator, or incubators that can help them accelerate their business, take their ideas from ideation all the way into being able to launch them, whether they're launching a tech company or a B2C direct consumer sale. The education piece, I think, is one, especially now in our more virtual world, that we can have, an even greater touch into. And then last is the economic piece, right? It's those of us who may have pitched our business to a VC or to a group of investors and realized we weren't the right fit, we should be thinking of how do we introduce that group into our other peer women founders. It may not be a great fit for me, but it could be a great fit for someone else. So I think it's really shouldering, and I liked how some of our speakers earlier were talking about the rising tides. I think if we can shoulder that and bring one another along, I think that's kind of how I look at what in totality, that kind of economic access.
That's fabulous. Thank you. Amy, if you could introduce yourself and share your perspective on economic access. And actually, I realized, Katina, we didn't get your 2020 word, so we'll come back to that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Protexter. I am a Senior Vice President of Marketing for Insight, and we are a global Fortune 500 technology solution company. For me, I've always worked in large organizations. They've always been very male dominated. From my first job at the Department of Transportation in South Dakota, where literally I was one of 2 professional women in a department of 1,200 people. It's always been, I think for me, economic access really just means a fair shake, right? Like getting an opportunity, no matter your age, no matter your gender, being seen for what you can actually do and what you can actually bring forward. And I think for women today, that's what we want. We want a fair shake. We want access based on our merits, because we have so many of those. My 2020 word is something that we all had to dig really deep to find this year, and probably found stores of it we never knew we had, and that's resilience.
Great one. And I love the term fair shake that you used. I think we'll definitely come back to that throughout this conversation. So Katina, we're hopping to you next anyways to talk a little bit more about your perspective on what you feel corporations should do to help unlock some of this economic access. So if you want to jump into that and also share your 2020 word along the way, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Well, 2020 was surreal, and it's surreal, and it's spilling over into 2021. But I think that I've had a career calling on large enterprises, and so I was able to really navigate and understand how to navigate the call into a large enterprise. And so, but had I not had that, I think what I see as success factors for female founders calling into enterprises is they are able to articulate and narrate what their value proposition is in a clear and concise way. And that can grab the attention of procurement and also business decision makers. So that quick narrative, right? We all know that even ourselves as entrepreneurs, that our minutes are so few and far between that we have to respect the executives that we're calling on. So quick narratives. Where I see also success in calling into enterprises is when there's a tenacity that can be unmatched, right? You have to be tenacious and willing to understand a business's internal politics. You have to understand how to strategically orient yourself and how you ensure that you have champions along kind of your sales cycle and your sales journey. Tenacious because large enterprises move like cruise ships. And then you have these young partners that are like jet skis that are trying to do donuts in the bay, where the cruise ship is just trying to make sure they don't they don't misdirect or misfire their direction. So tenacity, willingness to hang in there for long sales cycles, and also an investment in your own time and understanding how to strategically navigate kind of the internal politics of bigger companies. I think that the advice that I would have too for women that are trying to tackle the enterprise space is go be in the enterprise, go learn what it's like, wear Amy's hat. And if you haven't worn Amy's hat, maybe you go do that. Maybe you go do a big stint in an executive role or in a corporation, so you can see, from the inside how things operate. If that's not in your cards, or maybe you've already done that, then you have the chance to bring other women along with you to that journey.
I really like, Katina, how you focused on the role that us as entrepreneurs play in acquiring these contracts, right? It's not just about having the door opened for us. We have to be prepared when that door is open to walk in and know how to get the deal done. And so I think what's so great about Women in Cloud is it's really that dual mission of creating access, but then providing a platform for preparing us as entrepreneurs to be able to capitalize on that access. So now let's go to Amy. Amy, I would love to get your perspective on the role that corporate executives play in unlocking this economic access.
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, as a company, you have to sort of have that in your DNA, right? Like you have to be a company that understands the power of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for me at Insight, we have some really pretty simple but powerful values of hunger, heart, and harmony. And harmony really, it speaks to the fact that it takes very, very different types of people, different perspectives, different experiences, like diversity in all its forms, age, experience, gender, race, whatever, to actually create the complex solutions that we do for our clients. And so if you start with that as an internal sort of part of your DNA, it makes it a lot easier to sort of extend it into, out into the world. So, when I think about, Insight's journey, we started as a company, 35 years ago, and, have kind of always tried to build that bridge to being a good company. Part of that was joining the UN Compact a few years ago and really starting to set out purposeful goals for ourselves in areas of economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, all of those different things. And so, as every year we kind of reevaluate where we are. And I'm happy to say that, I actually went to our procurement department that has a specialty focus on diverse suppliers. And in 2020, we actually partnered or used 135 technology companies in the channel that were women-owned businesses. And it was about an $80 million spend of investment in companies that do that. So I think, if you're an enterprise, you should be advocating with leadership to establish goals, try to continually increase the access that other organizations have to partner with you. And I think, you have to look in the mirror and you have to decide, like, are we going to be a company that embraces the power, the proven power of diversity, equity, and inclusion in getting better results overall, which, study after study has shown.
That's so amazing. And thank you, Amy, for your leadership in this space. The numbers that you shared are fabulous. So we really appreciate your support. Wendy, would love to get your perspective on the public sector and how the policies that you work on promote inclusion, and also maybe some of the data points that you've seen that shows that this really works, that you can really move the needle with policy.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that you'll find is that when you meet chief diversity officers, whether they're in a corporation or they're inside of municipality, inside of government, there are various roles that that person plays in really addressing systemic racism, looking at gender gaps. And one of the numbers that we constantly hear is that we are paid disproportionately from everyone else. That women are always at the helm and at the head of the table, but have to sit on the side. And one of the things that we are doing in our office to really make sure that that is not an issue is that we're looking at how do we start making the wealth gap get closer. Meaning, as we've been spending with women and minority-owned businesses, one of the things we've developed in our office is a market analysis tool. And when we do a market analysis, we check for gender discrimination, we check for race discrimination, and more importantly, if the scope of work that our office is putting out doesn't meet those guidelines, the scope of work doesn't go out. So we're putting teeth behind that. And what we've been able to see is when I first came into office, we were about 11%. And now I'm happy to say that 50% of our budget is going to women and minority-owned businesses.
Fabulous.
We know this works. It takes time. I've been here now 7 years working with the controller on this. We have had to change multiple policies and done a restructuring of a lot of internal, old, archaic laws that we were following that were kind of bigger than most employees because they really have been embedded in the office. But where you normally see those kind of structural issues, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced it. You go and you apply. You want to do cloud services for the Department of X, Y, and Z, whoever the department is. And then they say one of the criteria says something like, you have to have like-size experience. So like-size experience, everyone's like, yes, because they're so annoying because like-size experience is really a biased way of saying you have to have done business with us. And if you are a woman and you've never done business with us, which is likely because that's how systemic systems work, then you are taken out. So we have eliminated those kind of words in the scope of work. As we've done that, we have seen a major increase. We've been able to triple pretty much every year throughout the last 7.
That's so amazing. And I think one of the things I love about these 3 women is that this is a living example of collective power, right? We have, Katina representing the entrepreneur, Amy representing the corporation, Wendy representing the public sector. And so this is really about how the 3 of us can work together to make a difference and move the needle on these statistics and, of course, make differences in people's lives. So we just have a few minutes left, and I would love to open it up to the 3 of you to a few things, because I know we moved through this time more quickly than we had planned. So a couple questions to ponder. One is, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that would help them harness the benefits of collective power, if you want to address that? If there's any burning points that maybe I missed in my questions that you want to make sure you get out, maybe use a minute for that. And then if you want to close with your word for 2021, that will bring us full circle. So Katina, would you like to jump in first on this one?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to take my minute, and I'm watching my timer. I'm going to take my minute on why corporations should knock down barriers and talk to us as female entrepreneurs. One, the businesses that we run, I mean, everyone we've heard today have given us some really great statistics. What we haven't talked about is many of us are on a jet ski. We can move really quickly around your large enterprise. So we can be on that jet ski and spin around. We have been exposed to a lot of different projects ourselves. And so we can bring in some dynamics and some best practices that you and your team may just not have had exposure to. And we have that unhindered point of view. We are not burdened by some of your internal dynamics, right? And so that helps us be really great partners for you. So you should choose us, not because of all of the other statistics, but because we can be really, really agile partners for you.
Amy, yes, your word, hopeful. I love that. Amy, let's go over to you.
Well, I would just say to Katina, I agree with you. I think, I'm in marketing, and it's all about agility today and always. And I think, the enterprise could certainly, I can speak firsthand, can certainly use a little bit of agility. Actually, a lot of bit of agility. So that's a really good point. I think for me, my advice is continue to be part of things like Women in Cloud. It's been so eye-opening to me personally that, what started as Women in Technology, trying to get more women into our big corporate company, is now expanded this year to really talk about access for smaller companies where there's some really amazing and talented women who need that. So I think just, network, knock on a lot of doors, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Do your best work. Those are all things that I think apply to you again. And I think as women, we just want that fair shake, right? And those things ensure that you're going to show up and get that, hopefully get that best fair shake. So my word for 2021, I'm kind of been on a re-kick, resilience. Re is actually the theme for our sales kickoff, which has been also going on this week, big week here. And so my word for 2021 is redefine, because I think we're at the beginning of a completely different era that honestly history will show in 100 years has been probably one of the most profound shifts of everything. In many, many centuries. So redefine is my word.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you're doing, Amy, to help us redefine a better future, and particularly working from the inside out of a very large corporation. Wendy, we'll leave it to you to be our closer here.
Pressure, and I have to say I guess my biggest piece of advice is for those of you that are listening that are thinking about doing business with municipal government, and you're thinking about how daunting that can be, just go in and do it. I think once you're in the government system, it has a lot of beautiful sustainability, and I've seen it. I have seen it in my own office that once you do get used to the bureaucracy behind it, it is much easier the second and the third time around. It also diversifies your portfolio. And it is seen as a big body of work because of the immense amount of service that the government does to all these different communities. So I am encouraging everyone that if you haven't been certified as a woman-owned business within your particular states, because I know we have people from around the world and around the nation, please go ahead and begin that now. And anyone who needs advice can feel free to reach out to me. My word for 2021 would probably be life is short. Just go do it. Go do the things you've always said you wanted to do. Life is short.
I love it. So we have be prepared, give us our fair shake, and get her done. I think that's what this is about. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation. Thank you to the three panelists, and Chaitra, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Kristen. You did such a fantastic job moderating this panel. So question for all of you who are listening, did you learn something? Are you ready for creating opportunities? So this is for people on the chat. And Kristen, Amy, Katina, and Wendy, you can just do is camera off and you'll be off the stage. Perfect. So this one was good. So are you ready for networking? So there are some ground rules, which I'm going to explain, and then I'll have Barry come in and talk about the marketplace and what we are doing there. So let's have the slide in. So there are a few rules of engagement in this one. How many of you are ready for networking? Okay, I need at least one. Okay, perfect. So here is what we are going to do. So when you go into the lounge, so right now you're on the stage, we are in a present mode. This is a live screen. But once we shut down the live screen, you're going to go into the lounge. In the lounge, every table has been named by the person who will be moderating a conversation. So the goal is to really create is an opportunity-based networking and business development. So each of the entrepreneurs will and the founders will be moving from table to table. So if someone is sitting alone for 5 minutes and nobody is showing up to their table, please go to another table, double-click the chair. You will be transported to the other table and have the conversation there. The goal is to explore opportunities or top of the mind challenges and to create infinite access. So here's a question for all entrepreneurs here. So what do you want to get out of the networking today? So, and what is on top of your mind? Go ahead and share on the chat so everyone can know what you're looking for. We'll have 2 rounds of business networking. After the first round, we'll come back and see what worked, what did not work, and what we need to tweak. Because this is the first time we are doing this kind of a virtual networking for business development, we need your feedback. And once we do the second round of networking, we'll finish by learning and connecting. Okay, so here is Ali is saying, proof of concept trial in high volume recruitment enterprise. Natalia is really brainstorming for opportunities. There will be very similar things all entrepreneurs are thinking, either access to funding, access to go-to-market partners, access to customers in the enterprise market. A real fact for all of you, when we did the Cloud Accelerator, the reason why the Cloud Accelerator exists today is because of Kristen. She was the one who completed the course. She closed the first customer, and she gave us a proof point that this is possible. So Kristen, thank you for making this one, and look at what we have created together. So with that, Barry, I want to have you on the stage with me, and you are the part of the Cumilo's leadership team. As you're part of the leadership team, you're also part of the Women in Cloud Board of Advisors. Talk about is what was the intention for you to join the Women in Cloud Advisor team? And second, let's talk about the marketplace that you helped us architect.
Yeah, well, first, thank you again for having me. Gosh, I remember last year's event just a short year ago, and getting connected to you and in 2019. And look, I got involved for a couple of reasons. One was you and the education that you gave me in two areas in particular. One was how women-led businesses, women technology businesses were not getting their fair share of corporate contracts, technology contracts. And then the other, which really opened my eyes, was the lack of capital investment and funding that women were not getting access to, and the gap that left economically around the world. And third is your coffee. I love your coffee that you make for me. It's just amazing every time I come over to your house. It's awesome. I don't know what's in it, but I love it. So I won't repeat anything the other panelists said. I think every one of them did a much better job than I could talking about what's been happening. I think the next evolution, and I'll throw out some statistics for you, is around the acceleration to cloud. The thing that's accelerated with it has been the way that these solutions are getting procured. And in particular, how they're getting procured on some of the cloud marketplaces. Those would be ones offered, by the cloud providers, as well as companies like AppDirect. And as you said, we're launching now the Women in Cloud marketplace, which is solutions.womenincloud.com. Thank you for the URL, right on time. And within there, we're showcasing women-led, women-founded, women-developed technology and consulting firms. And where we want to take this is very simple. We want to be able to take these solutions and connect them to the cloud provider marketplaces as well, and work with those cloud providers to carve out a section in their growing marketplaces for these women-led and women-founded businesses. And this is super important because as we look to increase the economic access, we will begin to find that more than 25% of SaaS-based B2B transactions are beginning to happen in these cloud provider marketplaces. In fact, in this fiscal year, it's estimated that about 200 billion in overall transaction, if you take all of the cloud marketplaces combined, and that includes companies like Salesforce that have their own as well, there's $200 billion in B2B commerce that's now taking place. COVID, to the panel's earlier point, accelerated this even more because all of a sudden salespersons were no longer able to meet with their customers face to face. And so what do you do if you're trying to sell enterprise software or some type of technical services to a customer? You really have one choice, which is to prove to them that it can work and give them a digital consumption or digital subscription method. So that'll be the mission this year. Is to connect this up with cloud provider marketplaces and expand the economic access, the procurement cycles that enterprises are going through using these new marketplaces.
So thank you, Barry, for helping us architect a marketplace that allows women to, companies to really find these solutions. because that was the biggest challenge. And now with the cohort, all their solutions are there. We have 30 solutions that you can go and find information, and their offers is also there for the enterprise market. So Barry, thank you for making this happen.
Thank you.
Now, yeah, so let's do this one. Are you all ready for networking? So we will go back to the lounge, and from there, we will have all of you move to the table with the names so that you can have fun. If you want to know more about who's at the mentoring table, here is the URL to find them and go and have connection. Let's go create opportunities, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go back to the lounge.